your questions into the chat feature, and I'll make sure to try to answer those right here on the webinar. So today we're going to talk about understanding your financial aid awards, knowing your options if you haven't applied for aid. We're going to learn how to help you calculate the balance due so you can make some good comparisons from among the different college financial aid award letters that you're receiving. And then we'll talk about some options for paying the college bill and give you kind of next steps. So at first, I'll say you probably remember that if you have some award letters in front of you, your students may have received some merit-based aid and some need-based aid. And we'll get into why that's important, but it's good to be able to know from the different types of aid programs that your son or daughter is receiving what's merit and what's need, because those will both help you in different ways, and you need to know different strategies for both. So I'll get into that a little bit further when we look at the award letter. So this is what a typical financial aid award letter looks like. Now, one of the difficult pieces is that award letters don't all look the same, and that's why it's hard to decipher exactly what you're looking at on each one. But typically, what you're going to see is some general information and congratulatory information, and then some information about costs. Hopefully you can see all of the costs listed on an award letter, but that's not always the case. So you might need to find out all of those costs when you're comparing different colleges and different award letters, and we'll tell you how to do that afterwards. But you'll see some information about costs. And then you'll see information about the type of financial aid that has been awarded to you. And it's usually three types: grants and scholarships, which is the best, free money that is awarded to your student. So you will see that. So on this example, that would be the President's Scholarship, which is an institutional scholarship, or a federal Pell Grant. In this instance, that's a federal grant. A federal supplemental educational opportunity grant, and a state scholarship. Those are all grants and scholarships, money that will come right off the bill. Obviously, the best type, and you really want to pay attention to that. Now, what's important to know is that some of these might be based on merit, and hopefully the award materials let you know that. If not, you want to ask that question of the financial aid office. I might take a guess here and say that this President's Scholarship could be something that was awarded to your student and is a merit-based award. And what's important to know about that is that award good for all 4 years? Or does your student need to keep a certain grade point average in college to be able to keep that scholarship? So you want to know the answer to that. And then the other types of aid here look like they're two federal and state. So that's just good to know. And then another type of financial aid that you might see on the award letter is work study, a federal work study award. And many of you might know that a work study award is something that you don't see that money up front, that allows your student to get a job on campus more easily because it's part of the federal work study program, and then they will get paid in a paycheck when they're doing the job once they're on campus. So that money then can be used for incidental expenses and things that come up during the school year, but won't be available to you up front when paying the college bill. So just keep that in mind. It does cover expenses and is part of the award, but you won't have it up front. And then the third type of financial aid that is on an award letter is loans. And really, I feel pretty strongly that the only loans you should see on this award letter are federal student loans, because those will actually, they have special terms. We'll talk about those. The student would borrow those loans, and those should be on an award letter. I don't believe other types of loans should be on the award letter, but you sometimes see that. So if you do, you want to take those with a grain of salt and put them aside for now. And we'll go over the different types of loans in a bit, but this is what a typical award will look like. So here's why I say I think it's okay to have the federal student loans on that award letter. You might say, are those really financial aid? It's not a grant or a scholarship. The student has to pay those back. But the reason they are financial aid is that the student is the borrower. Mind you, probably an 18-year-old student with no credit history. So the fact that a student can borrow a loan makes it a little bit special. And that these loans have low fixed interest rates. So you can see here, right, currently the low fixed interest rate is 3.76% on these loans. And they have annual limits or caps. So a student cannot borrow an unlimited amount through these programs. They can borrow $5,500 for freshman year, $6,500 for sophomore year, then $7,500 junior year, $7,500 senior year. And if a student borrowed all of those federal loans during their undergraduate program, they would borrow about $27,000, and their payment on a regular payment plan after they graduate would be about $300 a month. So I think that's so important to know all of those numbers and have your student really understand all of what that would mean. And for some students, that might be fine. A student who, is really planning to work hard, begin a career at the other end of the 4 years of college or the 2 years of college, $300 might be a manageable amount. And for others, it may not. Now, there are alternative repayment plans for students. So a student could also, after college, make sure that they were in a repayment plan with a monthly payment that they could afford. So they need to be proactive with all of that. And these websites that you see here, studentloans.gov, studentaid.gov, can help them with that. But a really important point, just that a student knows that they're getting into borrowing something that they're going to need to repay. I'll also tell you that right now there is a federal direct loan is separated into two parts, subsidized and unsubsidized. The subsidized part means that the federal government pays the interest while the student is in school. So if a student borrows $2,000 in a subsidized loan, the day they graduate, they still just owe $2,000. Whereas the unsubsidized portion of the loan, the interest does accrue while the student is in school. The student does not need to pay it while they're in school. They'll receive notifications of any interest that has accrued, and they still pay that 6 months after graduation, but it is accruing. So that will increase the amount of that they will owe when they graduate. So that's just good to know that the subsidized is the best part and the unsubsidized is not as great. You'll notice there is a small fee deducted from the loan amount, and we'll talk about that when we talk about paying the college bill. When you're trying to make sure you're paying your bill to the dollar amount, know that there is a fee taken off these student loans. Lastly, the way the student will receive this loan money is that over the summer, probably the college will be in touch with the student to fill out the paperwork, sign the promissory note, and go through something that's called an entrance interview, where probably online, maybe at an orientation or something like that, or maybe just from home, they will learn about the loan, the amount, the repayments, the options they'll have at the other end, so they really understand what they're borrowing. This is another task that you may find yourself doing right now. There is a process called verification, where colleges need to verify some information that families have put on the financial aid forms. So you may find that the college is coming to you right now and asking you to complete any additional information. And it could take a number of, it could be a number of different things. So I guess all I'm going to say to you at this point is, please stay on top of that. Just make sure that you're, especially with the college that your son or daughter ends up choosing to attend, that you're following up and making sure that all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed with any additional paperwork. And that's a very normal part of the process. Quick mention that if you have not applied for financial aid right now and you're not receiving award letters, there is still time to apply for some federal aid and state aid. The state aid deadline is May 1st, and the federal aid you can apply all the way through the enrollment year. So if you are hoping maybe your students could take out a federal loan, you can still file a FAFSA. Just be aware that most financial aid deadlines from colleges have passed, so you might have missed out on some additional aid if you haven't applied for financial aid yet. But that would be something you can talk with the school about as well. You may find that your student receives a number of admission letters, positive, which is great, but you may find yourself, your student may find him or herself on the wait list at a school or two. And I guess my advice with that would be that while there might be a couple of things that the student could do, let the college know that they still want to stay on that wait list, they're still interested, they could submit some additional grades or awards or honors or anything like that that they would like to submit additionally to help their case. But other than that, the student should begin to make other plans because wait lists are long. There's not a high percentage of people who get off the wait list at a lot of colleges. So continue to make other plans. But I'll add that it's an honor as well. I know that can be a really discouraging letter to receive, but it's an honor to be on the wait list. It means that you're fully able to be accepted. It's just that there were, you know, a huge number of people who applied at that school, and it didn't work out this year. So this is really important. This is a way that you want to compare the different award letters at the different colleges that you're receiving. So you want to take these award letters, whether you spread them out on the kitchen table or take this data and put it into a spreadsheet or MEFA's My College Cost Calculator, which is a great calculator online that allows you to compare apples to apples on all of these award letters that you're receiving. So basically what you want to do here is figure out what are the direct costs and what is the aid that's going to come right off the bill so that you as a family can see what you're going to owe. And college bills usually come due in maybe July. So you have some time, but you want to be fully prepared before you have your student deposit and accept at a college that you have a plan to pay for it. You don't want to find yourself, you know, just accepting because it's so exciting and then scrambling and figuring out that this is going to put you as a family in a really difficult position. You want to figure that out now. So with your charges, there are direct costs that you will be billed, and then there are indirect costs. So right now we're going to figure out direct costs, and yet don't forget about the indirect costs. There will be indirect costs when the student gets to campus. They'll need to buy books. There may be transportation costs, a laptop. There's always, you know, shampoo, some granola bars, all that kind of stuff. Those can be the incidentals. And you need to plan for those. But again, maybe a work-study job can take care of some of those, or you can think about, you know, what will help the student with those expenses. But for now, let's talk about the direct costs: tuition, fees, room and board, and I put health insurance here as well. So what you want to do is you want to make sure, I'm going to try to do this here, right online. Oh, I guess I can't. I don't have the direct link here. Oh, here it is. So what you want to do is you want to just pick a school. I'm going to call it College A, and type in the tuition and the fees. And one thing I'll say is that tuition and fees, you know, are all direct costs. So you'll see that sometimes private schools, the tuition is usually larger and the fees are smaller. Sometimes the public institutions have smaller tuition, larger fees. So Either way, they're both direct costs. Then there might be room and board. And so what you're seeing then, as you scroll down here, is you want to put these costs, and then you want to type in the aid that your student is receiving. And I'll keep scrolling down, and you can start to see that, oh, sorry. You can start to see what you're going to owe. So actually, that's not calculating, and I apologize for that. But online, this does work where you can see your direct costs, your financial aid you're receiving, and then you will see the remaining costs. So you will be able to see how much you will owe. And you can do that for each school so that you can really compare these awards and say, okay, my student is attending this college, we're going to owe $20,000 per year. My student is attending this one, we're going to owe $5,000 per year. At this one, we're going to owe $40,000 per year. That will be, you know, a very important number for you to know in that comparison, because then you have to figure out, okay, if we choose this school, how are we going to pay for it? All right, so I'm going to take us out of this calculator. I can try to do that. Pardon this. Okay, so here I am. So this is a very important exercise. Again, whether you do it at the kitchen table, on a spreadsheet, on a scrap paper, or on this MEFA, My College Cost Calculator. So, for example, let's say your student's top choice comes out where, okay, you figure out the cost, the direct costs, the financial aid awarded, and now the balance due is $20,000. How are you going to come up with that $20,000 every year? And for every single one of you, it's going to be different. But for the most part, all of you are going to come up with that $20,000 from three sources. One, past income, two, present income, and three, possibly future income. So what does that mean? That means that probably, hopefully, you have some savings. And in this one example, this is just one person, how they would come up with this $20,000, one family. Some student savings, some parent savings. Okay. And then maybe the family can also pay some out of current income as they go along. Now, every college will have something called a monthly payment plan. And colleges will start to send you information about that. And you can sign up for 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, where you pay a certain amount each month to break down some costs. So, for example, in this example, this parent is going to contribute $5,000 to a payment plan during the year. And I'm going to call that a 10-month payment plan. They're going to sign up for the 10-month payment plan, pay $500 a month, and that's going to be $5,000. And that's how part of the bill is going to be paid. And I would say that that is what we all have to do when we are sending someone to college, tighten our belts. You know, how are we going to fit these college bills into the monthly budget? Very difficult. But one way to do that might be to just spread it out over time. And then this family said, okay, I have some savings. I'm going to use the payment plan out of my monthly budget, and I don't have enough to meet the $20,000, so I'm going to take an education loan of $10,000. And that would be sort of a parent loan or a joint loan, family loan. That's on top of probably the federal direct loan that the student has already taken on. So this family would say, this is how I'm going to do this. Now, to give you some quick numbers, and this is very much estimated, but just to say that maybe a $10,000 loan would have a $100 a month payment. So a family might say, I can do that. I can pay $100 a month in an education loan. And they might be able to. But here's what I would encourage you as a family to think about. you're going to have to do that every year that the student is in college. So that will be 4 years in a row. And then do you have other children coming up? Are you going to need to do something like that for them? So, you know, there are educational loans out there to help you. And I think that can be great to meet a balance. But you don't want to overborrow. You want to think about what's best for you as a family and what's best for the student. And while I think a student borrowing the federal loans can be very manageable, I think once a student is going to be expected to pay additional loans, that is where it can get really, really tricky. So I look to this as more of a family decision to make what's best for the parents and the students. So let's talk about some of those elements too. So what savings? Any savings that you have, you're going to be happy that you have, because that is money that you can use to pay some of these bills and reduce the pressure on your current income and the need to borrow or overborrow especially. So 529 college savings plans are terrific. Prepaid tuition plans, if you've set those up for college, you're going to be happy and you're going to be ready to use them. But you might also have savings bonds or just stock CDs. Your students' bank accounts, that money can be used as well, or any other investments. So any of those will be great to use to pay the bill. So for the MEFA savings plans, these are just the ways that you can have your money withdrawn from these two accounts. So I've given you all this information. With the U plan, you would just call MEFA, and the distribution forms are going to be mailed in April. You can tell us, this is where the student is going to college. I want X amount to go to that school. So that's nice and easy. With the U fund, you would contact Fidelity and tell them how you want to withdraw your money in the U fund. And it would be the same with any other 529 provider. Call the provider once you know what money you want to use, and it's very easy to do that. So then I mentioned payment plans already. So I guess I'll just say that yes, this is a way to break down the costs, and the more that you can pay in a payment plan out of your current income as a way to reduce how much you might need to borrow, the better. You know, so if you just, as a family, are able to say, we are going to try to lessen some other expenses so that we have some money every month to pay toward these college bills, and that can mean we can borrow less. That will be very, very helpful. So again, look to the colleges to get information from that. So then many families will say that the savings and the payment plan might not be enough. And again, I think that before we talk about private loans and borrowing here, I would share that when you have all of those financial aid awards across the kitchen table and you and your students are talking about them, that if it means that you are going to need to borrow and you as a parent or your student is going to need to borrow more over the federal loans, it is worth having a very serious conversation about the choices that you're looking at. I talk to so many families where that student has fallen in love with one college, and if accepted, it's so exciting that it's hard to think that you wouldn't go there, you know. And it's wonderful, but you really need to keep the finances as a part of that decision. Just because you don't want to make a decision that maybe academically the school is going to be great, but financially it is really going to be a burden for both the student and the parent, because that's a factor. It is a factor. And I would say that if it means that the financial plan you need to put into place to go to that school that might be a stretch financially is a workable one, where as a parent you think, okay, we can give up some other things and it's worth it. I want to do this for my son or daughter. Great. Or on the student side, if you say, I've been working hard for a couple of summers, I have some savings, I'll continue to work hard. I know at the other end I'm going to have some loans, but I'm aware of that and it's worth it to me because this is the perfect program, and I will work and do whatever I need to do to make sure I can make this manageable, then that's great. But you need to go into it with that very serious attitude where you're making a solid decision. If it really is going to seem too burdensome and the future is uncertain and it's going to put the family in a difficult position and the student in a position to not have choices at the other side, then probably look at your second choice school, look at your third choice school. There are so many options and paths to the same career. Go to the accepted student days at all of those schools, ask questions, and I can tell you from my connections and visits and work with so many colleges and universities around the state, around the country, that there are fabulous things happening at a wide range of colleges, and many, many students are really happy going to a second choice school or third choice school and end up doing really well in their lives and their careers. So keep that in mind. You just don't want a burden that's going to be too much for you for the future. But that said, after savings, current income, there are educational loans that you can borrow that will help you meet the balance. So what you do need to know about those educational loans is, number one, there is a credit check. So you need to have a decent credit history for most of those. Again, you want to be really careful about what you borrow, borrowing the minimum, and thinking about total enrollment and debt. Know, what that payment is going to be like on the other end. Also, know all of the terms of any loan that you're going to borrow. So MEFA has loans. The federal government has something called a PLUS loan. So let me actually go to the next screen. Well, this is the MEFA loan payment calculator, which I think is terrific to use in that we have a lot of different types of repayment plans too. You can put in the amount you want to borrow and how many years before graduation, and then it will calculate the payment and all of the terms for all of the different types of loans. Really, really important. And I would say that you could use this as a template when looking at other types of loans. And so I mentioned the MEFA undergrad loan. There's also the Federal Direct Parent Plus loan, which is a federal loan that parents can borrow. And the school will tell you about that loan as well. So again, you want to make sure you know all the terms and borrow wisely. Some families ask me about home equity loans as well, because I know that has become a really popular way to finance for some people. Some people don't want to mortgage their home anymore, but it's worth looking into, in that I have seen some lower interest rates and fixed interest rates, which I think is key. So that's another place to look at before you settle on a borrowing option. So the timing on this I mentioned is that the fall semester bills will probably arrive June or July. I sometimes joke that you'll have June is fun, graduation parties, balloons, festive, and then the reality sets in. But that's why you want to make this plan now. You want to have a financial plan, so there's no surprise in July when that bill comes. And then it's usually due in July or August. So just make sure that you have everything down and know how you're going to pay for this before then. May, June, make sure you can apply for the loans then. You can set up the payment plan with the college, all of that. So you may need to reach back out to the financial aid office for a few things. So I just wanted to talk about some of those. I mentioned right at the beginning that you want to understand every element of your award. And one thing you really want to understand is, can I expect the same award the next 4 years? So that should be clear in your paperwork, but if it isn't, make sure you find that out from the financial aid office and find out about any private scholarships and how that's all going to work. What if you have a first choice school right now and you have an award letter that just doesn't seem doable to you, and yet you have other award letters that seem better, but your student really wants to go to that one school? Is it worth reaching back out to the college? I say yes. It's always worth a phone call, always worth an email. But I like to manage expectations and say that you should reach back out, try to have an honest conversation. This is my son's first choice. He'd really like to attend. He likes this program. He met with this professor, and it's perfect, but we don't see how we're going to swing it financially. Is there anything else you can do? You could have that honest conversation and just know that some colleges may say, well, give me more information. Why is that? Let's try to work it out. And others might say, I'm sorry, we've done the best we can. So just know that you should reach out, feel free to reach out, but know that different colleges will give you a different answer depending on how it's all working on that campus right now. Do go to the open house programs, orientation programs, accepted student days. Do find out as much information as you can to help you with your decision. Talk to current students. All of that is really important. And keep an open mind. I should have said this right at the beginning when I've talked about students falling in love with a college, and that makes it hard if the money isn't going to match up. But just all the way through this process, try to keep an open mind as to options and choices. So what's next? You're going to take some time. Most colleges want you to send in the deposit by May 1st. You have some time to make this decision. Utilize all of the resources to help you make this decision. So we're happy to help you with any of that. Again, attend events on campus. And we have other additional videos and webinars, and you can always call us to talk this through. Social media, another way to connect with MEFA. So I am going to read your questions now because I see we're getting a lot of them. So let me see. Is the Massachusetts financial aid process separate from the federal determination? Thank you. You file the FAFSA for both. So the filing the FAFSA covers you for federal aid and state aid. I will tell you that most states, including Massachusetts, have very little state aid. But there is a state scholarship. But by applying for financial aid via the FAFSA, you will be considered for, you have been considered for state aid, or will when you get your financial aid award letter. So you're covered there. Can a student get a student loan if they are not 18 as of yet? Yes. So the student can get the federal student loan by virtue of being enrolled. Yes, great question. What are my thoughts on withdrawing funds from the parent's 401k plan to pay for college? So here at MEFA, I work with a number of financial advisors, because who are helping their clients who have college questions. So that is a group of people who is prominent in my life. So I have heard so many financial advisors advise clients against taking money from retirement to pay for college. So I am not an expert that way, so I don't want to tell you specifically as a family about the decision to make. But I will just tell you that the general line of thought out there amongst people who do work with this stuff on a daily basis is do not use your own needed retirement funds for college. Now, there could be exceptions to that, but in general, one mantra I've heard is, you can borrow for college, you can't borrow for your retirement. Now, I'll say the one exception to that might be that sometimes families from a young age have worked with an advisor and made a plan and have saved certain funds in certain accounts that they really were planning to use for college, and that can be fine. But anything that you're counting on for your retirement, you probably want to try to not use. Again, but talk with your own financial advisor on that, but that's the conventional wisdom. So someone wants me to talk a little bit more about loans versus the Parent Plus. That went quick, sure. So you have many options when it comes to additional borrowing, educational loan options. Well, I mentioned other types of borrowing as well, home equity. You want to look into everything. But as far as educational loans, there is the Parent Plus loan, which is the federal loan for parents to borrow for their students. And parents can borrow up to the full cost of attendance, that's everything, tuition fees, room and board, books, supplies, everything minus any other aid received each year. So that's how that works, and the parent is the borrower. And you saw the interest rates there. I wonder if I can go back. I'm having trouble going back. I can try to go back. There we go. So the MEFA undergraduate loan is a private loan through MEFA, and the parent and the student are on the note together. So we think of it as a family loan. And at the end, you can tell us to bill one person or the other. But again, that caution of having an expectation that a student will be paying back more than the federal student loans is a risk. So usually we say that's a family loan. You can work that out together. And MEFA has very good interest rates, fixed, and really a number of repayment choices and options. So if you go to that calculator, was it here? Oh, let's see, there. You can see all of the different repayment terms, 10 years, 15 years, pay interest only, defer everything till after the student graduates. So a lot of options there. So I would look into both options and any other financing options you have, because you want to pick the best option for you as a family. I hope that answered your question. So there's a question about if the student becomes disabled or passes away as a MEFA loans and or federal direct parent loans graced. So I know that with the federal student loans that that would be forgiven. I need to check on the plus. I'm going to check, and I will, when I send a follow-up to all of you with these slides, I will double check on that for the plus loan. And I do know that MEFA has had to make some unfortunate, exceptions and help families that have found themselves in that position as well. So I know we have done that in those unfortunate circumstances. So I will follow up with that. Okay, so this is great. So a question about how does a 529 plan work if it's under the grandparent's name? So the way it works is hopefully you didn't list anything like that on the financial aid form, because those are the grandparents' assets right now. Once the grandparent uses some funds from a 529 plan to pay the college bills of a student, then next year when you file a financial aid form, it will ask for any monies paid on the student's behalf, such as grandparents' 529 plans, and you would report that amount. So if your grandparents, the grandparents paid $10,000 to the bill, next year when you apply for financial aid, and when it asks about what happened in a certain year, you would report that. So I would say the most important piece to know about that is, depending on the financial aid award you received this year, find out from the college, you want to make sure how much that would affect your financial aid award in the future. So you just want to be cautious about when and how to use those grandparents' funds. Conventional wisdom also is to use them closer to the end of the enrollment period, because then there are no more financial aid forms to file to ask about them. But sometimes grandparents have saved, wonderfully large amounts for families. So you want to be able to use those funds. Absolutely, that's a great thing. So just be aware that there could be some effect on financial aid, and you want to figure that out. And I'd be happy if anyone wanted to call us with specifics on that when it came time to talk you through that. So does MEFA offer student loans with co-borrowing, and is there a benefit to co-borrowing in a student's name and then paying the loan for that student? So again, all of MEFA's loans have both the student and the parent on the note. So the benefit of that is that in the future, if a student or a parent wanted to, refinance, or that the loan could be used either way, with the parent loans or with the student loans. So that is a benefit. I'm trying to think of any other benefits. The benefit of either parent or student repaying. I think that's it at this moment while I'm going through. Oh, so someone asked and said, we have received acceptance letters, we haven't received the financial aid award letters yet. And that's understandable. I would say they should be coming soon after. They need to come in plenty of time so that you can do this process to make a decision before May 1st. Maybe wait a short while, and then if you need to, reach out to the financial aid office just to ask about the timing of that, or to make sure that you have all of your paperwork up to date. And then someone asked, is a MEFA loan different from a Parent Plus loan? And yes, a Parent Plus loan is, the lender is the federal government, and a MEFA loan is from MEFA. And so we are, private, not-for-profit here in Massachusetts. So another question, part of my son's financial aid package included an unsubsidized loan, which we are not interested in. Do we contact the university and ask them to recalculate the aid package or remove it from the bill? So what I would say you can do is, when you send back the award letter, you can cross out and say we don't want the unsubsidized portion of that loan, and they will revise that. And then when it comes time to your son signing the promissory note and all of that, make sure he just signs the amount that he wanted, and then that's the amount that will be deducted from the bill. So yes, that's a pretty easy process to just get back in touch and say we're not going to take the unsubsidized loan right now. So someone asked about, what about a student who has their heart set on going out of state and far out of state? So I don't know exactly what you're asking here, in that, because I know that can be really hard for a parent to think about your student being so far away. You know what I would say, though? I would have your student talk to a lot of students who have gone maybe in the class above. Maybe a guidance counselor could put them in touch with a couple of students who have gone far from home. because some students are great with that and do just fine. And for some students, it's really hard, and it's a really hard transition, and you know your student best. So I would say try to avail them of all the resources so that they can make a really good decision. And yeah, that's probably the way to go about that, rather than you know, but sharing your own thoughts about it as well. But if it's a financial piece, you can also share those realities and explain why in-state might work better for you, your family. And someone is asking me about a junior in college who has a lot of savings bonds. And can they be cashed in even though they're not quite mature? I would say, you know, maybe talk to a financial advisor about that. But in general, if you do have some savings to be able to go toward the college bill, I usually encourage using those before, definitely before borrowing. So something to think about as an option for how you would pay the bill. And will there be a recording of this webinar on the MEFA website? Yes. I am recording this right now, so that will be available at all times. And then someone's asking, is there an organization similar to MEFA in other states? And the answer is yes. There are entities like MEFA. They're all a little bit different. You know, in some states, an organization like MEFA might run the state scholarship program. We don't do that here. MEFA has savings plans and we have loans. Other entities may not do that, but you can usually find a MEFA-like organization in other states. What I will share, though, is even if your student is going to another state, and this is maybe what the Kentucky person was asking, your student can still borrow a MEFA loan because you need to either have Massachusetts residence, and then your students can go anywhere and use a MEFA loan, or other students from other states who come to Massachusetts colleges can also use a MEFA loan. So that might have been what that question was about. Yes, as long as you are a Massachusetts resident, your student can go anywhere and use a MEFA loan. So someone is asking about the fact that they don't have a 529 plan currently, wondering if they should establish it now and deposit funds and then use those funds to pay the payment plan, or is it too late? Well, it's definitely not too late. You can open a 529 plan at any point, and it is true that you can use the 529 to easily pay through a payment plan, and that is a nice, easy process. So I would say that's definitely an option. You could also just pay the payment plan from another account as well. And you know, one of the greatest benefits of a 529 plan is the deferred tax over time. You know, so the fact that you're sort of establishing this late, you want to take advantage of all of that benefit, but there's no harm whatsoever in doing it. And in fact, if you have other children coming up, it might be nice to have that account open, and then later you can change the beneficiary. So you can definitely do that. Okay, so this is a question, a good one. If parents are divorced, do they get one loan, or does each parent take out their own Parent Plus loan? So as you can imagine, this will vary from family to family. Clearly, it is the best if both parents can talk about this and be on the same page and try to make this plan together. So that's ideal. If that can work, then together you can decide that you each figure out, okay, we owe $20,000. You take a $10,000, I'll take a $10,000, perfect, easy. Or this year I'll take it, next year you take it, all those things. We know that sometimes it's not exactly like that. So, but you have all of those options open to you. So however it works best to you as a family, even a divorced or separated family. And yes, I guess that's it. You can, and for example, when the bill goes out, they can take checks from multiple people and different types of payments to get that paid. So how you do that is on your own terms. So someone's asking, are there any options if your credit score is not that good? So there are options. There are a varied number of educational loans out there, and some of them, all of them do a credit check. Some of them might have options for lesser credit scores, and all I would say is the terms of those loans, the lower your credit score, the less favorable terms you'll have access to, but it's probably worth calling the college and asking them for some options of what lenders they work with in varying circumstances and getting a list and trying those. Oh yes, and another question about, yes, you're still eligible to borrow MEFA loans if your student goes out of state, and we're so happy to work with you anytime, no matter what. So happy to help everyone. So what if parents become legally separated during the student's high school senior year and the FAFSA has already been completed? So that's a circumstance you probably want to go back to the financial aid office. That is a significant change, and find someone there that you can talk with and talk about that change and how that's going to change things financially. And college financial aid offices are, they will work with you on all of that. So then a question is, we offer consultation meetings to discuss individual financial situations to plan on how to pay for college. So, well, I'll give you sort of a mixed answer there. That yes, we are happy to help you. If you really want to sit down and talk about this further, give us a call. We do, we are small, and we have, a lot of folks at this time of year. It gets very busy, but we try to accommodate and meet with people and help people in whatever ways work best for you. So we'll try to help you out there. But that's why we do a lot of these webinars and all, to hopefully, so that you can do some of the work up front, but happily. So please, yes, give us a call. And then another question, do you have to exhaust your 529 plan before getting some financial aid such as MEFA or direct parent loans, or can you choose to spread out 529 plans however you want over the 4 years? And the answer is you can choose to spread it out however you want over the 4 years. And what I like to say in this circumstance is, yes, you've been sitting back waiting for these admissions letters, waiting for these financial aid awards, for people to tell you what they're going to give you and all of that. But when it comes time to paying your bill, you are in control, and you have the choice of how you want to pay your bill. So you can spread out your savings over 4 years, or you can front load it. And it really is an individual family decision. So that will be individualized. In general, usually people will tend to use more savings up front and put off borrowing, but of course that depends on many things, like current interest rates on both the being earned on the savings and being paid on the loans and all of that. So your choice. Okay, so another good question. I'm going to take a few more of these because they're so terrific. How does repayment work for my students who may take out an unsubsidized loan if she decides to pursue a master's degree? And that is such a great question. So, there is a grace period when the student ends college. So repayment doesn't kick in for 6 months. So if a student goes directly to a master's degree, he or she wouldn't have started repayment. However, as we mentioned, interest is accruing on an unsubsidized loan, and it's also accruing on any type of private loan other than the subsidized federal student loan. So it's a serious consideration that a student has to understand that will accrue, and upon graduation from the master's degree, their loan balance could be pretty high. So they should the student should really just work out what that might be. Understand that. Look into those federal repayment options. There is one that is income contingent. So there are ways to have a manageable monthly payment upon graduation from a bachelor's or a master's degree, from any degree. But I just think it's very important for the student to, go into this undergraduate program with eyes wide open about what that will mean if they plan to pursue a master's degree. So this is for anyone pursuing further education. Take that into consideration, and when looking at the options now and the choices now, it's a long road. It's all manageable, but you want to make sure you go into that with eyes wide open, because those loans will accrue interest in graduate school. So this is the tricky one when we talk about states. What if the parents are moving out of state? Can they still get the MEFA loan? So the issue is you need to have that Mass connection. So you need to either be a Massachusetts resident at the time you apply, or your student needs to be in a Massachusetts school. So it has to be one or the other. So if your student is in a Massachusetts school and you move out of state, that's okay. But if you move out of state, then in the future you won't be able to apply for a MEFA loan if your child is, say, going to university in Kentucky. So keep that in mind. So this is a very good question, and I am going to get back to you, just like I'm going to get back to you about the PLUS discharge for disability. The question is the interest accruing on the unsubsidized Stafford loan simple or compound? And I believe it's simple, but I am going to get back to you on that too. I'm going to put that in the email that I send to all of you. And I think that is all the questions. Those were terrific questions, and I'm sure your questions helped everyone else on the line as well. This has been really fun, and please do continue to talk with us. Do call us. If we need to sit down, we can do that, and we're happy to help you. This is a big decision, and I'll give my last plea for try to make it fun. This is really exciting, thinking about your son and daughter's next phase of life, and try to keep it fun. Thank you so much, and I will send a follow-up email with the slides and with the answers to those 2 detailed questions about PLUS and about the interest accruing on the unsubsidized loan. Thank you.